This video tutorial provides an introductory guideline on the topic of data collection, data access, and data merging to the practitioners of counterfactual policy evaluation. For a successful evaluation, it's important that the data is well organized so that the evaluator can accurately assess, replicate, and evaluate a program. A well and carefully planned data collection is the best practice. Its absence may completely invalidate the evaluation. If data is not collected in time, it may be impossible to retrieve it retrospectively. For example, if data on participants in a program are not stored when the program is implemented, it may be hard to recover even basic information such as the list of treated individuals. Learning about evaluation early on and planning carefully helps the evaluator to navigate the process. The takeaway message of this video is: a well-planned data collection allows for a good and relatively inexpensive counterfactual impact evaluation. The video tutorial will cover 5 main points. 1. How to choose the right counterfactual impact evaluation method according to data availability and intervention features. 2. The data collection process. 3. Types of data that could be useful for counterfactual impact evaluation. 4. Data access. And 5. Data merging. The first decisive factor when choosing the CRIE method to be used is the design features of the intervention. For further details on that, refer to our video tutorial on tips and tricks of intervention design. The data availability is the second one. The data requirements of different CRIE methods are summarized as follows. 1. Regression discontinuity design. The features are that the participants are selected on the basis of a particular score, threshold, or other numerical elements. And the data requirements are that there should be a running variable, that is, the variable determining the eligibility, and one should also have observations on individuals at both sides of the threshold. For example, a youth guarantee program targeting unemployed people aged 25 or less. The age can be used as a threshold to compare individuals just above and just below. The evaluator needs to have a sample of individuals aged above and below 25 so as to compare their outcome after the treatment. 2. Difference in difference. Features. A treatment is assigned to a group of individuals, not necessarily in a random way. The group should have behaved similarly over time before the intervention took place. This is called common or parallel trend assumption. Data requirement. Information on the outcome variable before and after the policy for both the treated and control group units. The data collection procedures should be homogeneous and comparable over time and across group. The evaluator may need a long time series of the outcome variable observed before the treatment in both groups to assess the common trend assumption. So the evaluator needs repeated observations over time, either through a panel or a repeated cross-section. Example: an active labour market policy programme directed at long-term unemployed workers aged 50 and above, implemented only in some regions within a country. Comparing unemployment rates of older people above the age of 50 in treated regions to the unemployment rate of the same age group in non-treated regions before and after the policy gives the impact. The evaluator needs the time series on the unemployment rate of individuals aged more than 50 in both treated and non-treated regions. 3. Instrumental variables. Features. There are some random factors that could encourage or discourage the participation in the intervention, but do not directly affect the outcome. Data requirement. The evaluator needs a valid instrument available for the whole sample, including treated and control. Randomly sent encouraging letters inviting people to participate in a training represents a valid instrument, as it should affect participation to the training but not directly the outcome. The evaluators need to collect data, meaning characteristics and outcome variables on the group of individuals who was sent the letter and the group who was not sent the letter, and also information about who attended the training and who didn't. 4. Matching methods. Features. Intervention that selects the participants based on observable characteristics, not randomized, and not using a specific threshold like in the RDD case. Data requirements. The relevant information on all the individual characteristics that may affect the participation to the program and the outcome should be available before the start of the intervention. Example: the case of a voluntary training program for the unemployed. In this case, the evaluator may define the treated, namely who participates to the program, and the controls, who are the people that do not join it. The main issue relates to the fact that it's very likely that those unemployed who choose to participate differ from those who choose not to participate in important characteristics like motivation and ability. This is called selection bias. Good quality of data may limit this issue because it is possible to control for various observable characteristics that are correlated with unobservable ability. For example, demographic characteristics, household characteristics, previous employment, and unemployed spells. In order to better understand which method fit better, it is crucial to properly define the types and sources of data needed. Data collection. In general, independently of the method chosen, there are some basic features of data evaluation. 1. What type of data is needed for evaluation? Good quality data on both treated and control units, namely the participants and the non-participants in a program. The same collection procedure should be applied for both groups. Data should cover the following areas. A. Data on outcome indicators directly affected by the program. For example, employability after a training program. B. Baseline data before the program started on relevant characteristics of the treated and non-treated units. C. Data on other exogenous factors that may affect the outcome of interest to control for outside influence. D. Data on the details of the intervention. When did the program start? How are treated units selected? What are the main features of the program? Check whether the sample size is reasonably large to run the CRIE, i.e., make sure that the evaluator has a proper number of controls and treated. In general, larger samples provide more accurate and reliable estimates of the average outcome in the treated and in the control groups, and therefore more accurate and reliable estimates of the difference between the outcomes in the two groups. Nevertheless, it may be costly to collect information on a very large sample. More details about how to choose the right sample size are provided in the video tutorial on this issue. As mentioned above, CRIE methods have different data requirements. Rich data sources, as the administrative ones, allow using a wider set of data and hence to meet the data requirements of matching procedures, which require more variables than identification strategies based on RDD or randomization. 2. When data should be collected. Baseline data, before the intervention starts. This information is useful to understand the characteristics of treated and control units before they are eventually exposed to the intervention. The relevant characteristics may include demographic variables such as age, gender, or level of education, and also other information which can be useful for the evaluation of the specific intervention. For example, if the evaluation is about a program aiming at increasing the employability of unemployed, then information on past labour market history may be useful. Outcome data. This refers to the variable which better captures the successfulness of the evaluated intervention and should be collected after a reasonable time for the intervention to have had an effect. If the evaluation is about training for unemployed individuals, it's not reasonable to measure whether the participants have found a job one day after the end of the training. It may be more reasonable to measure employment after 3 or perhaps 6 months. In addition, there can be interest in short-term versus long-term effects, or even both. So, for example, the short-term effect of the above-mentioned intervention could be employment after 3 months, and the long-term effect could be employment after 18 months. 3. Which kind of data sources can be used for evaluation? There are 4 different kinds of data that can be used. In particular, census data, administrative data, sample survey, or monitoring data. Census data refers to data collected about every unit in a group or population at a specific point in time. There are various reasons why a census may or may not be chosen as the method of data collection. Advantages. Sampling variance is 0. There is no sampling variability attributed to the statistic because it's calculated using data from the entire population. Details. Detailed information about small subgroups of the population can be made available. Disadvantages. Cost. In terms of money, conducting a census for a large population can be very expensive. Control. A census of a large population is such a huge undertaking that it makes it difficult to keep every single operation under the same level of scrutiny and control. That's why censuses are available only every 5 to 10 years. Administrative data are collected as a result of an organization's day-to-day operations. For example, prior to being issued a marriage license, a couple must provide the registrar with information about their age, sex, birthplace, address, and previous marital status. Administrative data are usually in-house data. They are collected and owned by public administrations and bodies which include tax, labour market, and health insurance authorities, for example. Advantages. Sampling variance is 0. There is no variability attributed to the statistic because it was calculated using data from the entire population. The same set of data for the treated and non-treated units. Simplicity. Administrative data may eliminate the need to design a census or survey and the associated work. The availability of existing administrative data can also reduce the cost of collecting data. And they may be good to estimate the effect of program on outcomes such as employment or wages, and can contain useful information about background characteristics like the working history. Disadvantages. Incomplete information. Data items may be limited to essential administrative information and not include certain characteristics relevant for the evaluation, unlike a survey. Moreover, some of the data may not be accurately or carefully recorded and could be incomplete or inaccurate, since those items of information are of secondary interest, with respect to the evaluation of a particular program, to the primary administrative purpose for which they were designed. Before using it, one needs to check if administrative data contains the outcome of interest and if the data are collected frequently enough. Population. Data are limited to the population on whom the administrative records are kept, which might not fully correspond to the treated control group. For example, unemployment registers are limited to individuals who sign up as unemployed and do not cover those individuals who are not working but didn't register as unemployed. Limited access. There could be legal restrictions or confidentiality provisions that restrict access to the records and create delays in data access. This is usually the case with taxation records, for instance. There are other limitations where the format of the record makes it difficult to extract statistical data, where records are kept in multiple registers owned by different authorities that generate other difficulties in merging, for example, the individual from different sources of data. Survey data. Only part of the total population is approached and interviewed. Advantages. Cost. A sample survey costs less than a census because data are collected from only part of a group, but it does cost more than using administrative data. Flexibility. Generally, it's possible to add to the survey data all the information that the evaluator needs to better assess the benefit or not of a particular program. It is not rare that questions are added in follow-up of the survey, which is practically impossible with other sources of data. The possibility to conduct ad hoc surveys. The evaluator can use as a starting point administrative data on the interventions, such as information on how the participant applied or how he or she was selected. For example, if a given number of individuals applied to participate in the program, but only a part was selected, the target of the survey could be all individuals who applied, both the selected and those not selected. Similarly, if we know that an intervention is targeting only women, the ad hoc survey should be addressed only to women, as it is pointless to collect information about men. There should be at least one baseline and one follow-up survey, always on treated and non-treated units. Time. Results are obtained far more quickly for a sample survey than for a census. Fewer units are contacted and less data needs to be processed. Control. The smaller scale of this operation allows for better monitoring and quality control. Disadvantages. Sampling variance is non-zero. The data may not be as precise because the data came from a sample of a population instead of the total population. The sample may not be large enough to produce information about small population subgroups or small geographical areas. Monitoring data are collected by managing authorities for the monitoring and evaluation of the ESF fund. The obligation is to collect data strictly on participants of the program funded by the ESF. Advantages. Managing authorities have this data already in-house as they collect them for the monitoring purpose. And they provide characteristics of the participants and the link between participant and exact program followed. Disadvantages. Data are collected exclusively on participants, which make it impossible to use them alone for a counterfactual impact evaluation. To use this data for counterfactual impact evaluation, you need to find a plausible control group. Here are two examples of how to do it. First, merging ESF data on participant with admin data, from which you could build a potential control group and have a measure of the outcomes for both treated and non-treated. A very important point is that the evaluator needs to be able to merge administrative data with program participants' IDs. Second, keep information also on individuals who applied to participate to a program but for some reason were not selected. 4. Is there the need to choose one data source for evaluation? When doing an evaluation, the evaluator does not necessarily have to focus on only one data source, as for example, different variables referring to the same individual may be present in different datasets. Datasets could be linked, merging information coming from different sources. The most important feature that has to be checked by the evaluator is the possibility to have the unique identifier to be used to link different sources of data. This could be, for instance, the fiscal code if it is unique. 5. Who should collect the data? While a contractor may be in charge of collecting ad hoc survey data, the large amount of data that could be used for an evaluation usually already exists in-house, for example via administrative data. The managing authorities or the national statistical offices should make sure that these are available to the evaluators. In that respect, the managing authorities have a crucial role to play as intermediary body in facilitating access to administrative data for evaluation. Data access. The nature of administrative data means that some data collection may contain sensitive information on, for instance, the income, the criminal record, the health or the financial circumstances of individuals or households. Generally, the institution that provides the data establishes strict procedures and protocols based on best practice and national legislation to protect people's privacy and de-identify the data before its use for any research. Regulation 45/2001 of the European Commission establishes the rule to be respected to be sure that individuals' privacy rights are protected when their personal data are processed. Under EU law, personal data can only be gathered legally under strict conditions and for a legitimate purpose. Furthermore, individuals or organizations which collect and manage the personal information of people must protect them from misuse and must respect the rights of the data owners, which are guaranteed by EU law. Therefore, access to administrative data can be an issue for the evaluators. In order to facilitate the access of data to the evaluators, strict collaboration between managing authorities and the national central statistical offices is needed. In particular, in many cases, it happens that to carry out the evaluation, the evaluators need data both from the managing authorities and from the national or regional statistical offices. data held by the managing authorities are related to the intervention to be evaluated: participants, starting date, content of the intervention, while data from the statistical offices contains information on outcomes for both the participants and a possible control group. The evaluators alone, most of the time, cannot access data from the statistical offices due to the personal data protection laws. Therefore, the intermediator role played by the managing authorities can facilitate the access to those data. Action that could be taken in this respect includes: managing authorities can use their contacts with the ministries to have access to otherwise non-public data and then share them with the evaluators. As databases can be under the authority of different ministries, the managing authority can take responsibility of interministerial negotiations to obtain the different data. Managing authorities can merge data from the intervention with administrative data, then anonymize it and give it to the evaluators for the analysis. Finally, evaluators can write the code needed to perform the analysis and then give them to the statistical offices to run it. This may require accessing mock data to prepare the codes and intense cooperation between the evaluators and the statistical offices and managing authorities. Data merging. Combining different sources of data. When administrative data contain only some of the needed information, for example, good information on the outcomes, but very little information on the features of the intervention, or do not contain the needed information on background characteristics, it can be merged with ad hoc survey data or with the information already held by the managing authorities about participants and non-participants. The most important message is that the evaluator needs to be able to merge administrative data with program participants' ID, so that when collecting information on participants and non-participants, the evaluator should collect unique identifiers such as national security codes or tax records, for example. Records with personal identifiers in common, such as social security numbers or passport codes, allow for exact deterministic links of the same individual to be made across multiple data sources. If this information is not available, or the identifier is not unique, a different procedure may be applied. Linking methodology called probabilistic linking that ensures that two records have a high probability of belonging to the same person if linked together, for example. Probabilistic linking uses demographic variables such as name, date of birth, and sex to infer two records belong to the same person. These several field values are compared between two records, and each field is assigned a weight that indicates how closely the two field values match. The sum of the individual's field weights indicates the likelihood of a match between the two records. However, with probabilistic matching, some records can be linked incorrectly or the link could be missed. Merging can be done either by the evaluators or the managing authorities or national statistical offices, depending on the anonymization required by the different data and legislations. Indeed, the use of administrative data may require some form of anonymization, which can usually be done by the national statistical offices or specialized entities. There are several techniques that can be used to anonymize personal identifiers, and the technique chosen depends on the kind of anonymization to be achieved. Strict anonymization requires that data cannot be tracked back to the original, which imply not only anonymized or encrypting the ID number, i.e. replacing it with another number, but also eventually eliminating other information that combined together could lead to identify the individual. For example, combining exact date and place of birth, zip code of residence, gender, and other characteristics may leave the possibility to identify individuals even in the absence of a name or a social security code. Nevertheless, according to the final users of the data, anonymization can be implemented at different levels. If the data are used by a scientific research community with the only purpose of evaluating the policy in place or to do other kinds of research, not aiming at identifying individuals for any other purpose, then it is not enough or necessary to be so strict with anonymization, and simply changing the identifier may be enough. In this case, simply encrypting personally identifiable information is sufficient and guarantees that the existing structure of the data is not altered. For analysis done with a research purpose, this is probably a satisfactory solution for any anonymity requirements needed. On the other side, if data are for public use and can be freely and easily accessed by the public, then stricter forms of anonymization should be put in place. Examples of stricter forms are k-anonymization, perturbation, or generalization. Thanks for watching. If you wish you knew more about CRIE methods after watching this, then follow our videos on the YouTube CRIE channel.